All right, peace, everybody. Welcome to another segment of Masterminds Monday. I am one of your hosts, Phylecia Tarael-ANU. We are also here with the other host, Brother Damon Rawls.
Greetings.
Peace, peace.
Peace.
So, as you can see, we are doing something a little different this week. We are presenting via Google Hangout on air. So again, if you've been listening to our other shows, just to give you a background, we broadcast on enlightenment and transformation, typically via Blog Talk Radio, and the network is called Enlightenment and Transformation Network, which is founded by Chief H. Yuya Sananu. We have a couple of shows there. We have this show, Masterminds Monday. On Wednesdays, we have Anu Asafo, hosted by Sister Kim. On Thursdays, we have Thunderground Thursdays, as well as Foundational Fridays, both of which are hosted by Chief Yuya. And then there's also another live show, Chief Speaks, on Sundays, which is another live show. So we're doing a bit of a transition because if you are familiar with Blog Talk, we have so many issues, a lot of technical difficulties and issues. So we're just trying to come over to YouTube so we can kind of reach our YouTube audience as well as our Blog Talk audience, but kind of bring you all here to give you more of a stimulated experience. Because as you will see at the end, you'll have this via a video instead of just an archived audio MP3 recording. So it's a little bit more dynamic, and you can also interact with us via, I'm not sure if you can see it, but I will step back out for a second. Just so I can show you, if it's possible to show you, how you can present a question or a comment. It's via, it's similar to Blog Talk Radio again. It's like a chat function. So if you want to make a comment or question, you can go here. I'm going to just show you quickly. Okay. I'm sorry, not that one. Q&A. Here we go. So, okay, looks like this feature is not functioning for this show. All right, so this is a little bit of a glitch here. Maybe it wasn't turned on before we started the show. But either way, you can always leave your comments at the bottom of the Google Plus page, because we are presenting all of these on our Google Plus pages, which is another announcement I wanted to make. That we are, again, creating our YouTube experience for our Blog Talk shows via our Google Plus business pages. So with that, I would recommend that you would certainly find us on Facebook. Google Plus. I'm trying to mesh everything together. And you can find us there. So again, in the Enlightenment and Transformation page, it's called Enlightenment and Transformation. So that's our Google Plus page for all of our shows that we will be, we're slowly transitioning over. So today, it's a little bit different. We couldn't connect Blog Talk people in, but going forward, it will be a conversion of everybody coming over here, including our Blog Talk people. But let me just take a quick second to make sure I can bring in the slide before we begin our show. Okay. All right, just testing. Brother Damon, are you able to see the slides?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm looking at the avatar right now.
All right, let me just all right, come back. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I got kicked out. I was just saying, Brother Damon, we were sharing how we were missing you. You've been gone for quite some time while I bring over the screen share. But yeah, it's just good to have you back because I know you've been very busy with business. And, people have inquiring.
It's good to be back. It's just a busy time right now. We got a lot of projects going on, a lot of people that we're helping. So, I need to be cloned right now. So.
Oh, no problem. No, we understand. That's always good for business. But anyway, just wanted to recap since we have the screen share working now. Again, this is a live show. Again, we have some Q&A functionality issues. So again, no worries. We'll have it up and running by next week. We're doing a bit of some testing, transitioning over to Google Hangout because we've had so many tech issues with Blog Talk over the years. If you are familiar with our previous broadcasts. And then just to give you a heads up for tonight, we are going to kind of cover a bit of a theme on Black economic achievement, which we've been doing for the past 3 weeks. I really enjoyed last week's. I mean, you were missing, but we did brother Wally Amos. He had a very interesting story. You know, you think Famous Amos Cookies, oh, no big deal, but I was just blown away by his story. He like revolutionized the cookie industry. So if you missed that show, as of now, you can go get the archive audio on blogtalkradio.com/enlightenment transformation. But again, before we move forward, I just want to make a few announcements. Again, we are having another excellent event, and we are going to have it via webinar. So it's called The Spiritual Gifts of Herbs. And that's going to be exciting because so many times, I mean, you get spiritual work and you may not know exactly why you are using a particular herb, or why it's related to a male energy or a female energy. And this webinar will give you a lot of insight inside of those reasons why and that understanding, as well as, of course, it's going to be jam-packed with lots of rituals that can kind of help you to, you know, materialize whatever goals it is that you may have for yourself or whoever else that you want to help as well. So definitely RSVP in advance because it's coming up less than a week at this point. It's on Sunday, the 13th, from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can RSVP today in advance at inunation.org/events. So make sure you definitely RSVP in advance. This is definitely going to be an excellent event. And lastly, if you are interested in seeing any other particular topic explored, we always have encouraged everybody to email us at mastermindsmonday@gmail.com. You know, just in case you want us to highlight a particular topic, because we always do themes. I mean, we've been doing themes for the past, I don't know, 6-7 months now. So again, people have been really enjoying the deities, how they're related to business themes. And right now, of course, we're doing economic achievement, highlighting pioneers in the industry. And again, if you want something else focused covered on the show, just certainly email us again. That's mastermindsmonday@gmail.com. And lastly, just another update. The Alpha Omega store is also live on Facebook. So by that, I mean, we've always had a Facebook page for the store, but you can now actually purchase products directly on our Facebook page. So that makes it very convenient for people who do not like clicking all around. They just want to click and buy, you know, immediate gratification. So there you have it. We've highlighted some of our most popular items on this. So all of our items are not there. Of course, you will have to go to alphaomegastore.com to see our entire catalog. But some of our most popular items are there. And again, this is your one-stop shop for all your cultural, spiritual, and self-development needs. So we have everything from books to herbs to spiritual kits to cultural attire. So, you know, definitely come check us out. And again, it's alphaomegastore.com. And also we have excellent specials and rates and new products coming every single month. So again, let's just jump right into our show. Again, Brother Damon and I, we wanted to highlight an interesting lecture from Dr. Claude Anderson, because as many of you know, he's a pioneer, a major icon, again, within Black economic achievement. And he's got titles and achievements for days. So just to give you an idea of who he is, we figured it would be best to kind of give you a segment or a piece from his lecture. So I'm just going to play that for you, and we'll jump right into that. Give me 1 second.
Here's the problem, that historically in this society, Black folk have not moved one iota than when they were in 1860 on the eve of the Civil War. In a comparative proportional term, Black people are exactly where they were on the eve of the Civil War. And the eve of the Civil War. At that particular time, we had approximately 300,000 black people that were free in this country, or quasi-free, having come out of slavery. And that was out of 5 million black folk. And that 300,000 black people had mysteriously and miraculously accomplished and acquired one half of 1% of this nation's wealth. Now here you are 150 years later, and black people still only have and own 1/2 of 1% of the nation's wealth after 150 years. Also on the Civil War, 1860, we had black people right all over the country, at 300,000 spread out. That was so quasi-free. I looked at the employment rolls. Almost 100% of all those blacks were working in someone's house, someone's plantation, enriching and providing comfort for them. Here we are, 150 years later. 67% to 69% of all black people in America are working in some level of government. Another 26 or so percent of that, 27% is working in white corporations. Only 2% of the blacks in America are working in their own community for their own people. The unemployment rate in America for black folk is over 50%. When you hear them talking about the unemployment rate in America, they're talking about two things: those individuals who are looking for jobs or those who are collecting unemployment compensation. We have an institutionalized bunch of blacks in America that are no longer in the workforce. That's why 5 years ago, when Obama was running for office, they were talking about the unemployment rate in America was 16%. At that time, the national unemployment rate for black folk was 35%. It was 48% in Detroit, Michigan, 48% in Baltimore, 49% in Pittsburgh, 52% in New York, 88% for black youth. Now, what does that mean for you in terms? There's only 3 things that any given individual can do to earn a living in our society. They either work up here and have a business, or they have a job. They don't have that, they must move down to the second level. You move down to the second level, you must go on welfare or food stamps or some kind of public assistance. If conservatives come along and knock you off of that, you must go to the 3rd level. You must steal, go into crime. Every individual must either work, go on welfare, or steal. An elaboration, a combination of sophistication of those 3 things. You can't do anything else unless you evaporate and disappear. We live in a society that won't understand it, don't want to play games about it. About how you're going to solve the unemployment problem. You cannot solve the unemployment problem until you go back and address the real issues. Now, what are the real issues back in 1860? You don't own and control enough wealth. Why? Because you see, slavery did not happen to black folk by accident. It was inflicted on them intentionally to do something. What was it inflicted on blacks to do? It was intentionally inflicted on blacks to maldistribute almost 100% of all this nation's wealth, power, resource, businesses, income, and control to all levels of government. That was the point of slavery. It has never been corrected or addressed. All of a sudden, when black folk came out of slavery in 1865, how did they come out? They came out penniless, poor. No food, no animals, no land, no resources, no tools, no religion, no organization, nothing. All they were told, go out now, you're free, go out and compete. Compete with what? Compete with what? They said, well, you can jump high and run faster. Black folk had nothing coming out of slavery to compete with and to play the game. Because you see, slavery has systematically, socially engineered them into the lowest level of a real-life monopoly game. And see, prior to the end of the Civil War, the greatest wealth builder in this nation was the back of a slave. That's what built the wealth of the society. Wall Street was set up, established, and regulated off of the price and the value of a slave. Cotton prices, tobacco prices, all followed the value of a slave. When slavery ended, the whole process shifted to the back of a slave. At the end of slavery, it shifted to Wall Street. And those became commodities then. And when the wealth building in this nation shifted from the back of a slave to Wall Street, they set up a new game. It was called monopoly. Now, and what black folk have been systematically lured into is a real-life monopoly game. Now, the monopoly game is based on some primary concepts. One is that you must be able to all sit down at the table, and everybody's supposed to get a fair share of the money. Once you get a fair share of the money, then you got a right to go around the table and try to buy land. But you want to buy the most valuable land. and the best location of the land. Or you take your money and you buy basic businesses in the monopoly game, like the water company, electric company, and the railroad line. But see, when black folk, they got out of slavery, they did not get their 40 acres of the mule, nor the $100. And see, the Republican, radical Republicans, the liberals in the Republican Party at that time, said, and that was Benjamin Thaddeus Stevens and Sumter said on the floor of the United States Congress, that there's only going to be one thing that black folk will ever be in America. They're going to be slaves or they're going to be free. But they cannot be free unless minimally they have 40 acres, a mule, and $100. But they didn't get it. But by then they were trapped into a real life monopoly game. So now what blacks are doing is going around the real life board, trying to play real life monopoly with no money, no wealth. And all they do is go around the board and hope they land on free park or income tax refund. And if you play that way, sooner or later playing that real life game, you're gonna land what? On the wrong person's property. And you're either gonna go to jail or go broke and get out of the game.
Well, welcome back again. You're listening to Masterminds Monday on the day a little differently again. We are presenting via our Google Hangout on air on our Google Plus business page, which is entitled Enlightenment and Transformation. So again, if you are just listening in, again, this is something that we are doing new. As you know, we have other shows and we are making a transition over. So you are at the right place. And again, tonight we are highlighting, if you just joined us, you were listening to Dr. Claude Anderson. So, Brother Damon, what do you think about what he just said? Like, what were your thoughts? What was going through your mind?
Woo. Okay, there's a lot I got to say about Claude Anderson, because he's one of my favorite low key, people that you watch and you want to be like. I want to be like a young Claude Anderson, because once you learn his accomplishments too, this is not somebody who's talking about it from, this is the guy who wrote the first affirmative action policy in the state of Florida, one of the first ones in the country. So, and he ran political campaigns. He ran a political campaign for Jimmy Carter. He was high up on the food chain of the political campaign for Bill Clinton. I didn't know this, but he owned the largest minority-owned ice cream distributorship in the country. I didn't even know that about him. And it's actually in Pittsburgh somewhere. He's owned several and still owns some pretty big businesses. So this is not somebody who's talking about it from a wish and a hope and a prayer on the other side of the fence, not knowing, but this is a guy who's high up in politics, pretty serious in business, who really knows what it is. And one of the things he said, and there's a documentary on Netflix, it's about the game of Monopoly. And the truth is that we don't, everybody on the Monopoly board gets to have their, I forget, what is it, couple of $1,000, their $2,000 to start the game with. But Black folk, we don't get that. We don't get the $2,000 to start the game with. And in this documentary about Monopoly, actually they did some psychological tests around people who have money and people who don't have money. And they were showing how people without money are treated and people with money are treated, etc. And going into this to how psychologically and not just psychologically, but how disadvantaged you are when you're not playing on an equal playing field with everybody else. And I love that point that he made, because when you look at it, it's like a football or basketball game. Like, people have been cheating for 3/4 of the game. And then you caught them cheating. They admitted to cheating. And then they said, well, guess what? I've been cheating, but I'm going to play fair for the rest of the game. And so, cool, we're going to play fair for the rest of the game. But guess what? I'm not going to be able to catch up because you've been cheating for 3 quarters.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't played fair for 3 quarters, so don't say to me it's all equal. It's not equal. It's not equal. Let's get out of this Pollyanna world we live in talking about things are equal, because they're not equal. They're not, you know. And it's a subject that I get a little worked up about. Yeah.
Tell them why you're mad. Tell them why you're mad.
so I mean, you know, let's just be honest. You know, there is a such thing as white privilege.
Mm-hmm.
There is a such thing as being able to have connections and friends and family, those things. I remember sitting in a meeting one time, and a guy and it was early on. God, this is 8-9 years ago, early on in my business, and it was a bunch of business owners, some older, some younger, and we were talking about how to grow our businesses. And so I happened to be the only brother in the room. And one of the guys said to me, I was talking about how I was growing. And he said, well, Damon, I wouldn't grow that way. What I would do is I would go to my family and I would borrow $200,000, and then I would just pay them all back. And I said, well, you know, that's cool. I can understand that. I can't do that. I can't go to my family and borrow $200,000. I can't do it. I don't come from that type of family. I don't know. Some of you people out there in radio land can, but I can't. I didn't come from that type of family. So, so that just let me know that was another point to me. Wow, dude, not just you are behind, but generationally we're behind.
Yep.
Because if that's the philosophy for somebody to start a business who says, well, I'm just going to go and borrow a couple $100,000 from my family and pay them back. Most black people can't do that. 9 out of 10 black people can't do that. And statistically, I would say if we were to reverse it, other cultures can. So we got a lot of work to do. And Claude Anderson lays out a lot of information in his book, Powernomics. And then his other book. Oh, I forgot the name of that one. He's got a new, well, not new. It's not new. It's his second book or third book.
Black Labor, White Wealth?
No, not that one. It's another one about leadership, about black leadership. And he kind of goes into the bills and stuff that were used to, that hurt us financially and stuff. Like there was an Indian bill. There was a bill that was signed with the Indians that was actually taken from, and he talks about it. Even some of his lectures, he'll mention it, but he'll talk about it. But in there were provisions in that original bill that were for black people. And it specifically stated black. It did not say other. It did not say anybody else. It said Native Americans and black. And no one talked about this bill. And he specifically shows how politicians did not use this bill to leverage land, et cetera, and some of the wealth that could have been garnered from that bill for us. So that, man, I love Claude Anderson. And I could talk about Claude Anderson all night.
But no. You made some very, very interesting points that, you know, I wanted to get into based on what he spoke about too. You know, that's a powerful speech. Now, when I first listened to that lecture, he opens up explaining, like, you know, why before he never spoke to a mixed audience, because the audience in this lecture, you know, was mixed. He was at a hotel and, you know, it was white people in the audience. And he said, before, I didn't do that. You know, it was just black people, you know, because he didn't want to have to, you know, censor himself or anything. And when he realized when he would go to these churches that he was invited to speak at, sometimes at the end, he noticed that some of the white members weren't coming, and they were sharing later that they didn't feel comfortable with his message because they didn't want to think about racism. They didn't want to think about these things. Like, they feel like they didn't have a direct hand in it. But he said, but this is a problem that, Black people have. And they're like, so he's like, you just don't want us to talk about it? And they were like, well, yeah, pretty much. And it's like, what? So now he just says, I will speak to everybody, but at least in that lecture. And, I'm just asking for you to be open to what I'm saying and maybe being a part of a solution because it's still a problem. Now, what made me, of course, I understand that we're not on the same playing field. There certainly is white skin privilege. And I talked about this a little bit in the Goddess Concept webinar, actually, where I remember in college, I minored in Africana Studies, and we were learning about the social construction of race and how, the bourgeoisie, I believe it was called at the time, they knew like race wasn't really a big issue. Like, I'm not really superior than you because my skin is white, but they said, okay, I'm going to make you think that. So there is all this power in white skin privilege to the point where, white people are some of the most poorest people in the country. They have higher statistics of welfare than we do. It's more of them, but they are so stuck to that white skin privilege that they won't or refuse to kind of unite across class lines. So that's what these leaders back in the day were trying to say. Let's unite across class, not necessarily race, because I'm poor, you're poor, the top knows this, and they're just trying to manipulate that. And you don't want to unite with us to kind of fight this bourgeoisie, this elitist class system because of your skin color. So it was just that powerful where a dirt poor white person will think they're just as powerful as a white elite person because of the color of their skin. Meanwhile, they can live in a trailer and the whole nine, but it's that power and that skin privilege. So I understand that like that is a huge factor in terms of like the inequality, that we're facing, Black and other poor people alike compared to this elitist thing that's holding us back. That's what it's always resonated with me from college, just learning that. So it's not just a race thing, it's an elitist thing. They control the media, they control what you think, they control what you wear, they control the holidays you celebrate, it's this whole like programming. So that's why, I'm always plugging, of course, the school and Sadula House Spiritual Center. That's what we learn to kind of deprogram ourselves, to know that where the true power does reside. And they know this too. You can see it even in the media, in the movies and stuff like that. So definitely check out our courses at sadulahouse.com because you can really learn about what we're talking about here in detail. But what made me think really about, okay, what he talked about was, of course, his most popular book is Powernomics. And that was a book that was supposed to be this plan to, of course, empower Black America. And it was like a very regimented, like 5-year plan to make Black America prosperous and self-sufficient, quote unquote, by year 2005. Now, it is 2000 and what? 2015. 16's coming, And then I just was thinking to myself, just like anytime I go to a workshop or if I'm presenting, I just wonder why people are coming. Then I think, well, okay, are the leaders not, this is a question I'm going to pose. You can answer it. I pose it to the audience too. Again, if you are listening, you can feel free to leave your comments at the end. There will be a video output of this broadcast. So again, the Q&A is not working today, but feel free to leave a comment, whatever you think about this question. Now, I want to know, why is it that when we have such great leaders, or have had such great leaders and have still such great leaders in our communities that provide solutions? So there, like you said, when you started sharing your connection with them, he doesn't just talk about being economic and self-sufficient. He does it. I mean, he's the author of 5 books. Like you said, he's got ice cream businesses. He's been in real estate, politics. he's done everything, right? He's a political strategist. The list goes on. Right now, he's the founder of the Harvest Institute think tank. Like, he's got a ton of accomplishments and titles and achievements. So he's walked his talk. He's provided solutions. And that was supposed to make a big difference back in 2005. It's now 2015, going on 2016. So my question is, okay, is it that I do think we have great leaders, so I can't say we don't. The leaders aren't potent enough. Is it that the message maybe is not effective enough to motivate us? Or is it that we are just not listening? Or is the power of racism really that strong, right? Or is the breakdown of the family the core issue? So I'm just curious to like know what you think, as well as everyone that's listening in the audience. Like, what are your thoughts as well? But Brother Damon, like, what do you think? Because I was just amazed that, like, wow, in 2005, our community, well, we don't really have a community. Things were supposed to have a community back then. We don't. And I look at, like, where I live. I can go about 10 minutes. There's a Chinatown. Like, you go inside the store, and that's where I go to get some of my groceries, because they have some of the best groceries, the fresh vegetables, different types of vegetables, and you can't even get help in there because they don't speak English.
And
like,
it's not offensive.
Nope.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not offensive that they have a Chinatown.
Nope.
Like,
Nope.
We think that it's offensive to have a black town. If we have a black town, black people have a problem with it, and white people have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's okay. What's wrong with that? Mm-hmm. Culturally, we have some things that we do differently. It's okay. It's cool. Whatever. Let us have our things culturally. That's all right. But to your question, the answer to your question, I honestly think, and I've thought about this too a lot, mm-hmm. because you see some people and you're like, wow. I mean, John Henrik Clarke and Francis Cress Wells saying, and just, Franz Fanon. There were so many other leaders who gave information or give information. And so my I think it is my opinion. No, it's not my opinion. I know what it is. This is what it is. Here's what it is. Life is about programming. We are programmed since we are small. Just like you talked about the elite. You talked about the elite and the super rich. There's a book called How Rich People Think, written by this guy named Steve Siebold. And he talked about it. I've reached out to some of his people, but it's funny because he talks about really, really rich people. I mean, like, he's interviewed several hundreds of billionaires, etc. over 30 years, and he's a top speaker. So he goes into companies and gets like $50,000 a speech. But he said they live in this different world that we don't live in, and he said it's programming because we're programmed as not poor people, but lower class. That money is scarce and there's not money out there, and we got to fight for what we get, etc. And he said that rich people don't even live like that. Mm-hmm. There's opportunity everywhere. They see opportunity everywhere. They just pull money out the air, because it's programming. They're programmed about this abundance and this wealth. So if you think about it, on the other side, people of color have been programmed that they are less than. We have been programmed that we can't compete. We've been programmed that we're less than. We're programmed that we're mentally inferior. We're programmed that we can run faster and jump higher and play sports better and dance better.
Yep.
And that's why we do those things with such confidence. Mm-hmm. Right? Look at how we do those things. We do those things with confidence, but we don't do the other things with confidence. Mm-hmm. And those other things come from we've been programmed that we're not capable in those arenas. Even in the classroom, we're capable. Well, you know what? You got to prove that you got to work 3 times as harder because the world ain't gonna give you nothing. It's programming. It's programming. So we've been beat up and beat up and beat up. It's like like the way I explain it's sort of like this. So the sisters you see sometimes in Africa who are walking from the water well to the village, right? And they got the long stick across their shoulders, and it's got 2 buckets. So you got 2 buckets filled with water. But let's just say 1 bucket is filled with negativity and 1 bucket is filled with positivity. And our negative bucket is just full. You know what I mean? It's just full, and there's very little positivity or reinforcement of positivity in the other bucket. And so it's overweighing, it's heavy, and that's where your mind kind of lives. Your mind kind of lives in that space of inferiority. So we look at people like they're better than us. We always look at somebody like they know more. I sit in the room with a lot of people, and I'm gonna tell you, I don't know very many people, very many business owners that are really smart.
Yeah, that's true.
That are really smart. Like, seriously, there aren't very many of them that are smart.
Or even professionals like attorneys and doctors. Yeah, I have friends. I've had teachers. They're like, wait, you're not smart.
You're an idiot. You're effing idiot. Like, how did you make as much money as you make? You're an idiot. It's privilege. So I think, it's just that. It's that we've been beat down so much that we just don't think that we are on that same playing field. And therefore, when we get somebody like a Claude Anderson who gives a beautiful plan that would work, I mean, it would work. His plan was not outrageous. I mean, doing it in Detroit and the other cities, it wasn't outrageous and it wasn't crazy and it wasn't radical. But when you get those things and they lay out a plan, and then most of us go, well, white folks ain't gonna let us have that now. Yeah. Well, I don't want to offend nobody. It's madness. It's madness. It's madness. So what do you think it is?
I think it's a lot of what you said too, the programming, like I was saying earlier. When you look at TV, just to give you an example, I won't go into it heavily, but just like when I first started learning about indigenous spirituality and what Chief was sharing with me, I noticed that I wasn't identifying with religion, quote unquote. And when I would watch these movies, like more like these power figure movies, like a Wolverine. What is that called? What was that movie? Or X-Men.
X-Men.
X-Men, or even a Matrix. I always felt like a connection with these power figures, because I felt like just as an indigenous person, I feel like we all have like these special powers, just like in X-Men. So one was Storm, and the other one could freeze everything. Like, I just felt like everybody, indigenously has these powers. But when you look at TV, all the faces on these power figures are always white. So right then and there, it does make you disassociate yourself, if you're not white, with power. But meanwhile, who's Storm? Storm's Oya, right? Like, come on. And that was one of the most powerful ones in the X-Men. She couldn't even control it. It was so powerful. And it's just like, if you don't really deprogram yourself, which again, I know spiritual training is all about, even grasping the root of divine power. If you don't feel like going through classes, it really helps you to connect what you feel inside with truth. And then again, grasping your root of divine power, like you can really connect with your true power. So you can let go of these, like you said, that bucket of negativity that makes you think you can accomplish these things. So I think that's a major part, because it does put you at a major disadvantage, and you think it's just okay to just be cooning. Like you said, oh, I can dance, I can jive, I can play ball, but what about these other things? It's like, come on. Yeah, we get it. We can dance, we can jump, we can do all these things because we are amazing people. We have superpowers. And you have to learn how to tap into it, but you got to deprogram yourself. I mean, when I started learning, it was I couldn't believe the stuff that I thought was true. But when you really start studying, it's not like you just accept someone's dogma. It's just to really resonate with your soul, because I felt like I was guided here for a reason. And then I was really getting answers to questions I had deep down inside. And then I was able to now make a lot of changes, still have a lot more to work on. But I was able to connect with the power where I wasn't no longer scared of, like you said, okay, I'm not scared to have a black town or African town, whatever you want to call it, town. Where before, I think you're just so scared of upsetting that elitist, that bourgeoisie, I was learning about back in school. So I think that's a major part, because where the mind goes, the body follows. So if you don't think you can do it, you are not going to put in any type of work to do it. So mentally, if you are a slave, physically you will be one, and that's just what it is. So I think what you were saying, that's a major part of it. The flip side of it, I believe as well, is that it's that breakdown of the family. Now I know if you've been following us on Enlightenment Transformation, you hear us talk about this on every show. Anu Asafo, Sister Kim, me, Chief, we talk about family a lot. And he teaches us that we discuss the importance of the family on a regular basis, and he's taught us that economy starts with your family first. It's an ecosystem, and that's where it starts, with family first, with you internally first, and then branching out to your family. And I think the problem too is that if you look at our community, how many people do you know that have parents that are still together? I mean, for me, where I grew up, that was far few and in between. It wasn't until I went to college and it was like, wow, you got married parents. It's like, oh wow, all your brothers and sisters, you all lived in the same house. We don't have family. So like in your other example, somebody else can just say, oh, you just borrow $200,000 from your uncle and pay him back. And we're like, what?
Yeah.
Who can do that? We can't do that, but they can. And even when we've done other shows, Brother Damon, where we've highlighted some of the wealthiest people in Africans in the world, people that are indigenous, and they were straight out of where? Nigeria. And where was one of the wealthiest men? His story was he borrowed money from his family.
From his uncle, I think. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, that's why I really like this story, because it shows you, family helps you get to these places. So they may not do exactly what it is that you were doing. But if you have a strong foundation, if you're building something for them to kind of, take to the next level, at least there's an opportunity for someone who is like you, say an entrepreneur, someone else who has a vision and wants to take the family name to another level economically. At least they have a resource to be able to do that. So for the most part, we don't, because we don't even have families. We can't even just get together as families.
So can I touch on this family thing? Because I actually was having this conversation with my mom about this.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
That's so important. And I think once I got, in kind of listening to Chief's iteration on it over a couple of years, it dawned on me, because I started looking around and I was like, come on, man, cooperative living. So in a discussion, most cultures live like this. You don't have to leave the house at 18 years old. It is preferably that you stay in the house until you are married. Why? Because you are a contributor to that household. And even once you get married, if the house is big enough, you can stay in that household. So all these people who are running around here trying to leave home at 15, envision this. Your parents, you live with your parents, but everybody is contributing. Now, I ain't talking about living in the basement and not giving nothing toward. That's not, whoa. I'm talking about breaking bread and paying up. Is everybody, imagine 4 adults. You got an adult daughter that's in her 20s that lives in the house, who, she lives in one area of the house. Then you got an adult son that's 20, in his 20s that lives in the house that is contributing. Everybody's contributing. Guess what? Now the mortgage is cut down from several $1,000s down to a couple of $100s. So your mom and your dad now have the ability to put some money in their retirement because they're not spending all their money trying to pay for dwelling. Now you got everybody contributing. So the daughter gets married. Instead of her running out and leaving the house, let's say she stays in the house. Guess what? No child ever comes home to an empty house. You don't have lock-key children anymore. Why? Because grandma is there. Grandpa is there. Somebody is there to go pick them up from school if your mama can't get them, if your dad can't get them. You know what I mean? It just makes things better. Cooperative living. Look, our Jewish brothers and sisters do it. Mm-hmm. You can stay in the house in your 30s. And if the house is big enough, you ain't never got to leave. Mm-hmm. You can have your family, and you can. Our Filipino brothers and sisters don't leave the house until they're married. Mm-hmm. Who live traditionally. Now I'm talking about traditional. I ain't talking about new age folks, y'all. I'm talking about traditional. Now you want to know, if you look at most Mexicans that come to an area, you'll wonder why 7 of them living in an apartment. But you'll start seeing everybody's got a car because they're cooperative living. Everybody's eating out of the same food. Now expenses aren't as much because everybody's contributing. So you single sisters out there, there's no reason why several of y'all shouldn't be living in the same house. No reason whatsoever. There's no reason why 3 single women who are friends should not be living under the same roof, even if you got kids, because you can all contribute to one domicile and create something for yourselves versus struggling out there by yourself trying to make a living when you can cooperatively live.
No, I mean, you're on fire. And I think I would add to that, add one more ingredient to that is a male to lead those 3 women. Right? So that's where how polygyny comes into the play traditionally. People think it's just an egoic thing for a man to do, but it is cooperative living. That's 4 working adults. They're building an economy. They're sharing in child rearing. They're sharing in economics and duties and responsibilities. So again, sometimes we as women, we need some direction. We don't always know what to do. Even when we have money, we don't know what to do with it. So like you're saying, we might just be living single and paying a whole bunch of money and living in a big old house by ourselves. We could be, collaborating with our sisters, together, or joining families that way together. That's what it was done traditionally. Like even back in the day, if someone's best friend husband died, they would take her in. Okay, my husband's not your husband, because we can't leave you in the community just out there by yourself, So the closest thing though I've seen to that in terms of like the family keeping, for me, I've seen it up close, is like Caribbean friends. They'll buy, say their family will own a 3-family house. Some of my Indian friends too. So one, the mother and the father live on the top floor, and my friend, she lives on the 2nd floor with her husband, and then the 3rd floor, and it's a whole apartment type of a thing, but it's all one huge house, but it's a 3-family house, and the family owns it, and that's just what they've kind of passed down so that the kids don't have to worry about living situations. So, say if they have a husband that is well off, maybe then they'll move with that husband and maybe they'll start another, 3-family house or 4-family house somewhere else. But I've always seen that. That's the closest thing I've seen in growing up with us, you know, indigenous people doing things cooperatively for families. You know, I always try to look for, well, what is, because I'll give you two sides. I grew up in all black growing up neighborhood, and then I moved and grew up in all white, like white, where it was like you were called like names walking down the street. It wasn't that integrated yet when I first moved to this other town. And I just saw the difference. And I was just like seeing, like you're saying, how, yeah, if they need something, they just go to their family for a loan. You know, I need to borrow $200,000. Or this is what my father left me. You know, we had these two rich kids that everybody knew. Gigantic house. The kids driving a Jaguar in high school. You know, and my father left me. You know, while I'm working at Burger King, you know, like, hey, how you doing today? He's pulling up in his Jaguar, you know, and I'm just like, what the, you know, what? I understand, again, the white skin privilege, so I get it. But I just saw how we still have a lot of money and we do waste it on stupid things. So like if you come, like I wrote Natural Hair for Young Women, and you'll see how, I mean, listen to Jewel Pookrum talk about how much money we spend on the haircare industry, putting perms and chemicals on our scalps, messing up our melanin. It's $1 billion energy fueled by us. So collectively, we have a lot of money. If we can spend $1 billion on weaves and perms and all these chemicals that we're putting, which is making the programming worse, then we have money. So we can't say, oh, we don't have any money. We just waste it on the stupidest things. You know, so I'm looking at them like, okay, I lived in all black, I lived in all white. Okay, your family saved and pooled the money together. Yes, you have white skin privilege, so you don't have the same challenges that we have, but you did do something with your money differently, because you could still waste it just the same. I've seen white people win the lottery and then millions of dollars, and then they're broke the next year because they never knew they will, you know, lived in a trailer. They never knew what to do with money before. So they wasted it. And then I see black people, some have money, but it's that, oh, I'm going to renovate my apartment in the projects and I'm going to get a truck with rims. It's like, what? I've seen star athletes. I watched documentaries on star athletes where they were spending and wasting so much money that their accountant, one of these athletes, I forgot his name, he said, okay, from this, like he was a kid, going forward, you cannot make a purchase without me approving it. So he couldn't go anywhere without his accountant approving it, because he said he was going to be poor within 6 months. And he's like a millionaire. You know, and it's like he said he spent all of his money, his sign-on money, to the point where he couldn't buy his mother a house. So what did he do? He renovated her house in the projects. It's not hers to renovate. It's owned by the city. How pathetic is that? So like you said, like it's the mind, it's this programming is a major flaw. And then it's when we do have money, we still spend it on stupid things. So I can't sit here and say black people, we don't have any money, because that's not the case. You can see a lot of black wealthy people, and then we highlighted a lot of Africans. The wealthiest people in the world came out of Nigeria in terms of indigenous people, and it's not Oprah Winfrey, you know. So we have some serious money within indigenous communities, but just saying here in this country, I just feel like, again, the programming, we're big time consumers. So we waste our money on the dumbest things. And I can tell you, even from here, from this perspective, say for instance, we host a workshop or Chief does services. People think, again, like we talked about, that if you work in spirituality, everything should just be free. You know, oh, I don't have $50 for a reading that should really be costing $300 to $500. If you really know how much this stuff really costs for quality, you can pay a lot of money for nothing. That's just like the bare minimum. So you have somebody that's really trying to help you and you still complain about it. But then at the same token, you'll go spend $20 on some stupid or $200 on a pair of jeans. You know, it's just like, it's okay to do that if you can, but if you can't afford to do that, then what are you doing? So on the outside, you want to look wealthy, but then you go home to nothing. You own nothing. You have credit card debt. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like our priorities are not in place. And I feel like, again, it starts with that breakdown of ourselves first. Like you were saying, that whole mental programming. Of course, we live in a very racist society where the elitists they don't care about anybody but themselves. Disregardless of race, they don't care about race. They care about the elitists, like them and them alone, no matter what color they are. I feel like us feeding into this racism thing, as well as us just, like you said, just being filled with the negativity, not seeing the positivity, and just settling for not wanting to put in the work to kind of free themselves of this. So again, I feel like that results in us now in 2016 still saying why we don't have a community when we've had so many leaders like Dr. Claude Anderson put a plan in front of you. Just like you have spiritual leaders like Chief Phylecia come and teach you how to empower yourself. And then guess what's going to happen 15 years from now? It's going to be some other show talking about the same thing. So I just feel like I just feel like we're not, it's a part of us too. We're not taking the role of being action oriented to make the changes too. Because it's just a whole lot of talking. Oh, who's going to provide a solution? People called into chief speaks. Oh, I'm tired of hearing about people burning up churches. We need to find a solution. Solutions have been put in front of us 1,000 times. So I think it's something that's stopping us from acting on it. And I think that just comes down to the individual and the lack of family, because we're not, we learn things from our family. If we're not learning how to be strong and empowered from our family, and we can't even connect and get together on a family basis, then where's our foundation coming from?
True. That's true. Yeah, I agree 100%. It's a lot of work. But it's, this conversation, there were two people on a radio show having this conversation 20 years ago.
Exactly.
Let's just be straight up. You know what I'm saying? They had dashikis on and afros, and they were having this exact same conversation. Mm-hmm. Well, never mind. That was the 80s. Let me go back. But 30 years ago, they were having the exact same conversation. In the 70s, they were having the exact same conversation. Mm-hmm. In the 40s, they were having the exact same conversation. Yeah. We're smarter now, y'all. We got to stop having the same conversation. Mm-hmm. We got to stop having the same conversation. We have to move into action. Mm-hmm. Period, point blank. We got to move into action. And generationally, I mean, I get it, at the 70s, they were fighting for a seat at the table. Now, after that, they opened the door a little bit and people were able to go kind of where they want to and get some jobs, etc. And then our generation, we, like, I kind of say it this way. Our generation is the freest of the generations. Mm-hmm. Because we could go to school where we wanted to. We could live in predominantly white neighborhoods, etc. We could go where we want to. We could eat what we want to. We didn't have the same problems. I mean, not that racism didn't exist, does not exist. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just talking about freedom of movement and freedom of education, because education is one of those things. We now have the ability, like, you wrote a book, you don't punch a clock, you creating family wealth. Now, your offspring will have a better chance because you're further along. They'll have a better chance of doing the exact same thing and not falling into the system of people prior to us, wanting a job and gonna work themselves to death for somebody who doesn't care about them. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I say, like, we're the freest generation, because it's our job. We're probably the most educated out of the generational line of Africans that there is at this point. So it's our job to take us all to the next level.
Yeah.
And set the children up for success so that they can move to the next level. Mm-hmm. So.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's perfect. Couldn't said it any better. It just makes me, to add to that, this is the information age. I think back then, and I'm not an expert on astrology, but I believe it came out of the Piscean age, where, like Dr. Claude Anderson and other leaders, we were looking for that leader. you know. So now that's why you don't see them as prominent as you used to, because that age and that era is kind of over now. It's time for you, because the information age means that all the information that you're looking for is at your fingertips. It's not hidden anymore. All you got to do is go online, and if you don't have a computer, you can go to the library for free. You know, it's books, it's the internet, it's people, it's places, just giving you information. But the key is, what are you going to do with that information? Are you just going to take it in and do nothing with it and just remain, like this, triple darkness, deaf, dumb, and blind, triple stage darkness? Or are you going to transform yourself with that information to some level? We don't expect you to be evolved overnight. But I think you should at least, to comfortably look at yourself in the mirror, instead of just feeling okay with like, okay, I look like I'm conscious and I look like I'm empowered, but are you really doing anything with the information that you're receiving to kind of help yourself so that you can help others, help your community, and so on and so forth? Whether it's just to be a better person, to actually, be an integral part of your community in some way, shape, or form. Because we're all not meant to be, something. Your purpose can be just to be a good mother or a good father or whatever, or a teacher. But the key is to kind of learn what that is so that you can become, of course, empowered, and then you can help and empower others. So I think that's important to do. Kind of take in the information and try to digest it so that you can have an integrated experience with that information, and try to evolve, make some changes for the better in some way, shape, or form. Because I think it always starts with, it's a cells. Like, it starts on the tiniest level, and it starts with you first, and then we can kind of build from there. But I always think family is key to that, to having a strong foundation, and of course spirituality. But before we head out, again, if you are listening to Masterminds Monday on Enlightenment and Transformation Broadcast Network. And again, we are doing something different this week. We are broadcasting via our Google Hangout, Google Plus page, which is Enlightenment and Transformation. And we're going to be doing this pretty much every week as we transition off of Blog Talk Radio. But so this is a lot of fun. It's a little quiet, but I did like it. We usually have music in the background and all that stuff. Which we still may have that as well, but this is kind of a way for us to connect with our YouTube audience, because we do have a lot of YouTube videos. So again, if you just look at us on YouTube, go to ANU Nation, you can see all of our channels there. That's where they're all concentrated. We have a Reach Religion page for all of our research information. Of course, Enlightenment Transformation is for all of our broadcast networks. We make videos. We were doing this before anyway. We were making videos for all of our broadcast shows. So this makes it much easier via Google Hangout on there to reach our YouTube audience, because you'll learn that sometimes YouTube people are just YouTube people and Blog Talk people are just Blog Talk people. So some people just don't like, switching on different platforms. So we're trying to go where we can best suit everyone's needs. And it seems like YouTube is that way. So I really enjoyed tonight's cast, but I wanted to know if you had any announcements that you wanted to make before we close out, Brother Damon.
Yeah, I wanted to announce that we at Damon Rawls Consulting have a business breakthrough program going on right now, and we're having a lot of success with the program. And so in that program, just two things. I'll give you guys two things, but there are a lot more that we do. But two things that we do in this program is what we identify and tackle the self-sabotaging behavior that keeps you stuck in your business, so that you're not seeing the success you want. And then the other thing we do is we help give you a strategy for turning that business into what you want it to be. And we give you the tools that are needed to turn that thing into that. And so if you want to get information on that, you can go over to Facebook and click on the Damon Rawls Coaching and Consulting, and you can follow that Facebook fan page, or you can follow me on Facebook, Damon Rawls. I'm on Twitter, all the social media platforms you can find me. But that's our announcement. That's the only thing we got going on right now. And so having a lot of fun with it. seeing a lot of businesses that are starting to have some success. So jump on the train, y'all. Come on.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. And again, going forward, again, if you have any comments, again, I want you to answer that question that we presented on why do you think our community has not changed. Again, Dr. Claude Anderson wrote Powernomics. He put a 5-year plan in front of us where we would have had been self-sufficient by 2005. It's 2015, almost 2016. So I want to know, we want to know, what do you think some of the core reasons are? So again, we're going to put out a video of this broadcast, and you can always leave your questions or your comments there as well. But let us know what you think. You've heard my opinion. You've heard Brother Damon Rawls' opinion. So we want to know what your opinion is. Because then again, this is a live show. It's going to be more interactive. You can actually leave your comments. We can answer them live on air going forward. But tonight, this was a very important show. So we want to know what you think. So we can, of course, try to come with some solutions that we can actually implement. But again, thank you for tuning in. Again, this is Masterminds Monday on the Enlightenment and Transformation Broadcast Network. And we will see you again next week. We broadcast every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So again, thank you for joining us and have a beautiful evening. Peace.
Peace.